Now there are a huge range of metallic threads on the market made by many manufacturers and of different types. And sometimes they are just what you want for a project, but sometimes they can be a little bit tricky to use and not perform very easily through your sewing machine. So one or two little tips to help you. The first thing is to buy metallic needles specifically for sewing metallic threads, and they come in a range of sizes, so smaller sizes for finer metallic threads, bigger sizes for thicker metallic threads. The reason you need them is they have a different shape groove and a big eye specifically designed to help stop metallic threads shredding, because that is the most common problem. So get the correct needle to start with, and you might want to buy 2 or 3 different sizes to see which is appropriate. You can't just sort of know instantly by looking at the packet which is the right one for that particular thread that you are using. Don't put the metallic thread in the bobbin, just have the metallic thread in the top. So I would use something like a bottom line specifically designed bobbin thread in the bobbin, and I would just choose a colour that was close to the metallic thread that I was actually going to sew with. So you can see this gold thread here would work quite nicely with this sort of buttery golden coloured yellow bobbin thread. So that is what you are going to do in terms of your bobbin thread. Now you may find that you need to slightly alter your tension, and you will have to make some samples to try that. And when you are making your samples, don't just put any old random piece of fabric through the sewing machine. Sew with the exact same fabric that you're going to be using and the exact number of plies. So if it's 2 plies, sew with 2 plies, because you want to replicate exactly what you are doing. And so for example, you may need to loosen your top tension slightly, and that means taking it to a lower number, because the metallic thread is often not as smooth as regular thread. It's a bit textured, it can have different types of fibre twisted together, so it's not going to glide through the sewing machine and between the tension discs as easily as smooth and more regular thread. So loosening the top tension will help it glide through more easily. Also suggest that you lengthen your stitch length, and that is for 2 reasons. It will sew more easily and it will give the thread chance to show itself off. If you have a really short stitch length, there isn't enough of the metallic thread laying on top of the fabric to show you that beautiful glittery and shiny effect. Now, even having done those things, the thread often doesn't feed awfully well through the sewing machine, and so there are further things you can do to really try and help that. Now the theory is that this type of crosswise thread goes on the horizontal pin, and the more regular straight wound thread goes on the upright pin. And if you are putting your thread on an upright pin, make sure that the thread is really well supported with something like this little disc. This is actually made by Bonina. It's plastic with foam, and it really enables the thread to spin in a smooth fashion. If I don't have this on, it tends to jerk and you get sort of the thread pulling, and then you get a lot of thread and it loops, and then it gets tight again. So really make sure that your thread is supported if it's on the upright pin. If it's on the horizontal pin, put the smallest little fitting on the end, so that as the thread runs off, it runs off straight and not up and off. That'll just help it feed more easily. But if that doesn't work, you can try one of these thread feeders, which you can buy. Clearly this is a homemade one with a block of wood and a bit of coat hanger wire, but putting the metallic thread onto, well, it hasn't got a hole, but putting it onto there and then through here and then feeding it off that way often really helps the thread feed off smoothly, and so that the machine isn't kind of fighting to get hold of the thread. So the more smoothly the thread feeds off the spool, the better it will react through the sewing machine. I have one other thing to say on additional little aids. Two things here, but they're basically the same thing really. This is specific to my sewing machine, but it is a thread lubricating attachment, and it's magnetized and it slots into the back of the machine, and then there is a little felted area here with a channel in the middle, and you put a silicone lubricant into, you put a few drops of that into, or onto should I say, the felt, and as the thread runs between those two pieces of felt, it is lubricated, which makes it a little bit more kind of slippery, slidey, easier to feed through the sewing machine. As I said, this is a silicone lubricant, it's not oil, even though it looks like oil. So what you can do is you can just squeeze a little bit down the actual spool of thread, and do that at intervals, because obviously it's on the top and you're going to use that thread, and that again will help to lubricate the thread in the same way that this little attachment does. And the last thing to say is not all machines like all threads. So just because your machine doesn't like one brand or one type of metallic thread isn't to say that it isn't going to get on much better with another. But as a general rule, the smoother the metallic thread is, the more easily it will sew. So if it's very rough and very kind of textured, it's going to require a little bit more setting up than a much smoother metallic thread. But there are a number of things there to help you try and get the best results. So spend a little bit of time doing some practice pieces, trying all those different things, and hopefully you will have success and be able to achieve some sparkling results.